One of my members, I was telling them about. I'm from the country, y'all. Okay, so but was telling them that my mom is fighting with the groundhog in her yard, and I want to shoot it. And they're like, "Oh, well, be careful when you shoot it, because groundhogs are good eating." And I was like, I just knew that somehow this conversation was going to like eat a groundhog. And so they're like, "Oh yeah, no, it's real good." Like they're like, groundhogs are vegan, so like they just munch around and eat all that good stuff. And he was like, when you get it, you got to make sure you don't don't rupture the sacks. And I'm just envisioning this, and it's so gross.
Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Growing Up Christian. I'm Sam.
I'm Casey.
I'm Jeremiah.
And as we speak, breaking report. We'll get into the backstory of it.
The energy just went right off a cliff right there.
I know, I really think it. Okay, as we speak, Trump's Mar-a-Lago location, private residence, business, whatever it is. He's got a golf course and shit. But it's getting, it got raided by the FBI, so that's really cool. But I don't know a lot about it, and I probably won't until later because I'll just read the cliff notes like a good American. But I was privileged enough to see the Newsmax take on this situation, and it was very Newsmaxy. I'm going to give you guys one guess. You get one guess each as to what they whatabouted towards. You know the classic whataboutisms. Oh, right. They're going to raid his. Okay, well, what do you guys think it is?
Epstein's Island.
It's a good one.
Ooh, that is a good one.
Let's it's Newsmax, so we gotta own the libs, all right?
Right. I hate to guess this one. Is it
AOC's
Hillary?
98 Civic?
I was gonna guess. Is it Hillary? Did they bring up Hillary?
Oh, that's also Hillary's a classic. Email? No.
Okay.
We're gonna keep this going. More than one guess. I know you guys can get it because it's as I would say it's like right behind.
Okay, Hunter Biden's house.
Yes, Hunter Biden's laptop.
Wait, they asked you if the FBI is going to raid the laptop?
They should. No. They should raid his house. They immediately went to, Hunter Biden, they referenced a phone call of Joe Biden calling Hunter Biden saying, I saw the New York Times report or article that was written earlier. Everything's going to be okay. And they were like, if that's not enough to raid his house, I don't know what is. So
don't we know everything there is to know about Hunter Biden? Like he's a piece of garbage. He's using his dad's name to get a bunch of positions on different boards and things. Like he's literally just throwing around American clout to milk money out of corporations overseas. And he likes to bang hookers and smoke crack. Like, what else is there to know?
There's nothing else to know.
It sucks. Nobody's defending Hunter Biden. He sucks.
The only one who sucks more than Hunter Biden are the people that keep hiring him. Like, don't you guys know by now?
Burisma, you suck. I hope you catch a scud.
I mean, look, I believe in employment for people, but we know he'll be okay. And maybe stop giving him jobs hoping that you'll get something out of it because you're probably only going to get a scandal.
He's just going to use your lobbying money to buy more drugs.
Yeah. What else is there? He will
clog the executive toilet and misuse the company credit card for sure.
Although I feel like every kid who maybe doesn't have their life all figured out yet does have a perfect opening to be like, look, mom and dad, like the president says he's still proud of his son, the 50-something-year-old crack smoking, hooker banging lobbyist. Like, you guys can't be proud. Like, all right, I dropped out of high school, whatever. Like, it could be worse. All I'm saying is Joe's still proud.
He's got a reason to keep him around. I think Hunter's the only one with a lower approval rating than Joe.
Well, all these parents are like, listen, son, you make a good point, but the only difference is you're gay.
Yes. So, is there an MP5 pointed at Trump's head right now? Is that what's going on, or what?
Is that a gun? I know that's a gun only because of, I think, Perfect Dark for Nintendo 64. Maybe.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a classic video game gun.
Is there an MP5 gun in that?
Casey, have you ever shot an MP5?
No.
Oh man, when you slap the charging handle, when you slap the charging handle down, it makes the most satisfying. Like you feel like you're in SWAT every single time.
I'm getting a little chub just hearing about it.
Yeah. I don't like the way this conversation's going.
I didn't shoot a full auto one, Sam. It was a semi-auto 9mm.
I hope your clip was limited to at least 10 rounds.
Casey, do you think he said clip just to tick us off, or does he genuinely not know? Because
about to get really awful gun nerd.
Oh, see, I don't know what's worse, me not actually knowing, or you having a problem with me not knowing. It's
that's fair. That's fair.
Gun nerds are the worst.
They are.
Oh, but what is the actual? Now you've piqued my curiosity because dumping clips. Dog. I love dumping clips.
Okay. Sure. A clip, technically, it refers to the older style, like a Mosin Nagant or something.
Okay. English.
Let's say a World War I or World War II gun. Okay. One of the guns where you could see all of the bullets together, like in a little bundle, and had a little metal clip over it, and you shoved it down into the gun. And then when you emptied it, you ever play Medal of Honor and you empty out your M1 Garand, and then it goes cha-ching at the end, and something flies out.
Yeah.
That's the clip.
A magazine's like a little metal or plastic box with a spring in it that holds a bunch of ammo.
Right. Magazine, the bullets are enclosed inside it. A clip is literally a metal clip that just goes around the bullets so you can shove them into the gun. Almost like, I don't do any modern guns even use clips, Casey, or is that just an old thing?
I don't know. I know we're hemorrhaging listeners right now.
Yeah. No, I don't. A magazine is something like Good Housekeeping or Reader's Digest. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was a bundle of paper that you read at the dentist, even though you weren't interested in it at all.
Do you guys still subscribe to any magazines? Do you guys subscribe to magazines still?
Yeah, my kids get highlights, so I subscribe to that.
Oh, I love going on discountmags.com and seeing what like a cheap, get a $3 1-year subscription to something and just see if it's any good. I have like a stack of like 35 magazines in my living room.
That's exactly why I don't want it. I get the Kansas State Outdoors magazine that you can choose to pay like an extra $15 a year towards their conservation thing, and they send you a magazine like once a quarter.
What could they possibly have to talk about in the canvas? Like, oh, it's still a prairie.
Like, have you checked the water? There's fish in there.
Do they have like a stats basically on how many tornadoes have come through lately? Is that a thing, or
one for sure? I can confirm that.
So I know we've shifted away from the original topic, but that's okay. It's clear that me and you guys have a different stance on guns, and probably I think there's a lot more overlap than with most people who might be on different sides of the aisle there. But one thing's for sure is I will be visiting KC in about a week and a half, and I definitely plan on shooting some guns while I'm out there, despite my feelings about them and how they contribute to society in probably a net.
Yeah. But sure, anyway. They do, but they're fun. But Sam, but you're going to visit Casey. His guns aren't contributing anything bad. And he just wants to shoot paint cans in the yard.
They aren't until I get shot in like the butthole or something like that. We'll see what happens.
I promise not to shoot you in the butthole.
Maybe we should do
what I will do?
Live video of me learning how to shoot something that I probably shouldn't be shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what I will do.
I'll do it right now. I'll get in the ring with you and I will break your jaw. I will knock your teeth out. I will break your nose and I will break your neck.
Oh man, that gravel right at the end there. He drops his voice down.
I love that vocal fry. He's got some solid vocal fry.
Vocal fry.
Yeah, he's got the radio voice right there. You can never take that away from him. Man's got style. Are we pivoted into that story?
Yeah, we're pivoting.
Well, what's happening with the Trump thing? I don't know anything about it.
Oh, I don't know. It's all related to his
the January 6th probe or what?
Yeah, I don't remember if it's that, because he was also under investigation for had to do with the way he handled classified presidential documents.
It's technically about that. I'm reading the news story now. Yeah.
He tried to flush a bunch of them and shit like that.
Which you're not supposed to do for whatever reason.
I know.
And those documents.
That's the one
flushing,
thing him and Hunter Biden have in common, actually, is flushing shit down the toilet when the FBI raids your house.
You know how like presidents for the past like 60 years have carried, like they've had somebody with them that carries around the nuclear football. It's like the little like launch codes box. I think Trump probably just has like all of his Secret Service wear a backpack with a paper shredder. Once in a while there's a false alarm and they just like start shredding like Domino's menus or something.
He's like a toddler that just discovered invisible ink and he writes all of his documents in that.
Yeah.
He dictates them to someone else. Let's not pretend like he can write.
Yeah.
But yeah, so officially it's just about the handling of classified documents, but the classified documents are supposedly related to January 6th. So it kind of comes full circle.
Okay. I should have known.
Well, I mean, if he was flushing documents related to something else, that's also interesting. I'm interested in both.
That's
both
right.
seem newsworthy.
I do remember them talking about that in relation to January 6th now. It's hard to remember because so much has happened in the past year. And, I don't know. The whole January 6th thing is weird because fuck him and the way that he handled it. But it just feels like I can't imagine a world in which no matter what they find and how this plays out, it's truly hard to imagine a world in which a former president actually gets charged with something. Does anyone feel differently?
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
I mean, Watergate was like, don't do that anymore. You're like, they took his job. And then
he resigned.
You couldn't really directly connect Nixon to that in a way that you could, that would draw criminal charges.
Yeah. It's just all of that shit's tough. I mean, if the president of the fucking United States, good luck finding a way to draw a direct. They're so insulated. Isn't that the point? Like,
right. There's never going to be well, I guess we shouldn't put it past him. There likely is not going to be a text message or a phone call of him saying like, beat down the barricades, take the Capitol. Like, he could say a whole lot of things circumstantial around that. But yeah, there's probably not going to be a smoking gun.
Now, if anyone
why he's not going to get charged? You want to know why he's not going to get charged?
Here we go.
We are all ruled by little chicken neck Nelly.
Chicken neck Nelly?
That's why. Yeah.
Like, it's getting hot in here, Nelly?
Yeah, maybe so. I didn't load the transcripts or the translations, so.
No, if anyone does actually have a smoking gun, it's Trump. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's, well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that because he comes off as really dumb, but he has yet to be indicted on any criminal charges for being a shit fucking businessman and an unethical monster for the past 50 years. So I don't know.
He's had plenty of businesses go bankrupt and be sued and everything, but he's been sued so many times. That's part of the beauty of like setting up corporations and things. Yes. You can just dust your hands and walk away. So
don't do a sole proprietorship. Yep. You're gonna fuck people over.
What do you want to do? Take responsibility? Get out of here.
Let's do another pivot. Speaking of text messages and potential smoking guns, Alex Jones
I got the article right here.
The best fucking thing that happened this week. Too funny. I hope people have gone out of their way to watch this hearing because
it's brutal.
It's like watching a cartoon. He's not real. Everything about him is just an animated, over the top character. And I can't tell if he buys into his like this worldview that he's crafted, or if he's like intentionally trying to create this frenzy. I can't.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Either way, I mean, you just want to tell
what a liar you are. Just the outrageousness of an anti-American piece of crap like you. Excuse me.
I think he's kind of, I don't know, jumped the shark isn't the right term. I think he believes himself at this point. Like, he knows he's a liar about a lot of things, but most people, when they're in court, know to shut up. And he can't help himself. He's been doing it for so long that like all he knows is to fire back at the judge and fire back at the other lawyers and stuff. Like, even you pick the worst other journalist or news host, who's had to go to court for any reason, and they know to sit there and shut up and let their lawyer be like, this is just entertainment. No one would take this seriously. And they're like, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's
well,
correct.
Look what happened when he let his lawyers try to take care of things.
Well, his ninth lawyer.
Yeah. Let's set the, for anyone who's not paying attention to this story, basically he was already, Alex Jones had already been found. So, okay, he's in court again. And
he's on trial for defamation.
Yes.
Right? Because he, at the time of Sandy Hook, and in the, like, I don't know how long he stuck to the story, if it was years. I know he's been off of it for a long time, but he kind of like perpetuated the idea that the Sandy Hook thing was a false flag, that it was fake, that the people were crisis actors, and that it was all a big ruse to like take away your guns. And as a result, I mean, he's got a big audience. And at that time, I mean, it was probably even bigger than it is now. A small percentage of those people could not handle that information. And they started to harass the victims of this shooting and the parents of the kids who were killed. And I mean, literally just like made life a living hell for them.
Yeah,
so,
like death threats. Some of them had their house, like people shot at their house for like with some of these families.
Yeah,
I heard one of the families, the father killed himself.
Oh my God.
It's and it's like you're hearing all sorts of like things right now because it's but
he lost.
It was bad for them.
This why he's in court right now is it's strictly to decide how much money he owes.
Well, yes, families. But what I want to talk about the thing that he lost the defamation trial by default judgment because him and his lawyers, after he replaced multiple sets of them, they just made a mockery out of the legal process. They declined to participate in discovery, like not showing up, not being prepared, not turning over things when they were supposed to. And of course, he's on his show lying to all of his listeners about like, we did everything they asked for. We gave him more than anyone else would, just doing the like exaggerating everything to make it sound like he's the perfect person he's being discriminated against. But the judge's statement was something to the effect of like, no one's ever been this bad. Like we've done everything. We've tried everything. We've given you every possible chance. No one gets this many chances. Like you're losing the court case because you've declined to participate in the legal system. And so you declining to participate does not mean the rest of us have to. So you're guilty. And now the second trial is for damages.
Their legal strategy was a little like
a monkey doing you-know-what with a football.
I love the soundboard.
Yeah, we need to use this more. I'm a huge fan of it.
Well, and like, I mean, it gets worse than that. When they were doing discovery, when they were sending a bunch of files over, they sent child porn in some of them. Come
on!
Oh, what? You guys weren't aware of that?
Nope.
No.
You pig.
Reading from the article, lawyers representing the families. This is the ones where he's been ordered to pay $4.1 million in compensatory damages. Lawyers representing the families said that files they were sent by the Infowars founder as part of the discovery process contained child pornography. The images were found in electronic documents requested during a hearing back in April. The lawyer representing the families alerted the FBI, who is looking into the emails. So the FBI advised counsel that its review located numerous additional illegal images, which had apparently been sent to an Infowars email address. So Jones's lawyer at the time, Norm Pattis, said that the FBI cleared Jones after an inquiry found there was no suggestion that anyone here wanted the material, looked at it, or even knew about it. It said apparently it was in emails that Jones never opened. So that's their argument, at least, is people emailed child porn to him, and they did such a bad job of vetting the things they were turning over as part of discovery that they just forwarded it along.
Maybe that's why they chose not to participate in the rest of it, is they're like, we don't know what's in those. Let's just take one on the chin.
Right. So now
let's just,
roll up the sleeve, have the convulsion, and hail Satan.
Man, how many more are there, Casey?
Oh, there's so many.
So, if you want to hear a great podcast about it, I feel like we've probably promoted it on here before, but Knowledge Fight is a podcast where two guys like do play-by-play and they fact check various episodes of the Alex Jones show. And it's at times like really entertaining and at times extremely depressing. And at other times it'll prep you for the arguments that you're about to hear by your family members on Facebook about a week from today. But they've had the attorney for some of the sets of parents, Mark Bankston, has been on there before to talk about the parts of the case that he's allowed to talk about. So if you're ever interested in like hearing more about how this whole trial's gone, those are very fascinating episodes and you should look them up. But I've got the article here that describes what happened this week. Do you guys want me to read through it?
Oh, yes. This was my favorite. I've watched a bunch of videos on it.
Do we have on your we don't have on a sound clip, Casey, what the judge said to him?
No, but I haven't. We have some stuff we can read to it.
Fantastic.
So this was when this was during a part of cross-examination where Mark Bankston, the lawyer for the families, they were trying to determine how much money does Jones have, because that's what this trial is for right now. It's just how much money should he pay.
Right.
So they're trying to determine how much money does he have, and he's been making the argument to his listeners on air that he's broke and they're just barely above water and yada yada yada. And so
he got deplatformed.
Yeah, and Mark Bankston says, "Well, you're lying." And of course, Alex Jones gets flustered, but he's like, "Do you want to know how I know you're lying?" So plaintiff's attorney Mark Bankston informed Jones that 12 days ago, Jones's attorneys accidentally sent him, Mark Bankston, an entire digital copy of Jones's cell phone, which they failed to declare as privileged. Also, he immediately wrote them back being like, "Hey, what's the deal?" Because you can apparently walk back something during the discovery process if you accidentally give them files you're not supposed to, and you can go, "Wait a second, that's privilege," and then everyone just has to pretend like it doesn't exist. So that they might know you're lying, but if it's not part of evidence,
which shows you that the process has more integrity than you might think.
Right. But they didn't respond to his emails. They didn't respond. Like the lawyer isn't responding to the plaintiff's lawyer for 10 days. Like he just misses that email. That's a terrible lawyer.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't be their bank account. I would absolutely be checking their bank accounts sometime within the next 6 months to see.
Oh yeah, that there is the conspiracy going around the internet that like maybe this lawyer decided as like number 9 in a row. They're like, "Look, I'm not going to win this case. Like I might be able to be a hero. Like
dude,
it's
imagine
possible."
That's coming for sure.
Or imagine being so bad at your job that the easiest explanation is that it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, that's true. But so then Bankston says, "This is how I know you lied to me." And then shows him like, "I have a whole copy of your phone, which we went through the proper process to be like, hi, did you mean to send us the phone?" And they never got back to us. So guess what? It's part of evidence now. I can ask you any questions about the stuff in the phone. And then he said, "Do you know what perjury is?" Yeah. And Jones's face just contorts. If you've been looking at all the memes that Sam's been posting on the Growing Up Christian Instagram, you'll see some very quality meme work of Alex Jones's face when he realizes like that's this might be like multiple sentences. Like this might have some legs.
Yeah. That's not maybe I should have
been. So Jones had previously told the jury that he's broke and bankrupt. Told the jury, like this isn't just him talking on his show, going back to perjury. Free Speech Systems recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, which is not the same things as Jones personally being broke or bankrupt. Bankston told Jones the data from the phone showed that Infowars was making between $100,000 to $200,000 a day in 2018, even after he was deplatformed from major social media sites, and occasionally made up to $800,000 per day.
It's wild.
So at the close of his cross-examination with a flourish, Mark held up a single dollar bill, the amount of money Jones' attorneys have argued he should pay in damages. And then Jones, again, he can't help himself, fires back, "What does the New York Times pay for lying about WMDs?"
Oh my God. Dude, that's one thing he has not been able to shut the fuck up this entire time. There's this bit of him seemingly chewing gum, and the judge is like, "You need to spit that out. You cannot be chewing gum in the courtroom." And he's like, "It's not gum. It's I had a tooth removed, and it's a gauze in the back of my mouth, and it feels better when I chew on it on the hole in my gums." And she's like, "So you're chewing on gauze?" He goes, "Yeah. Do you want to see it?" He starts walking up, like opening his mouth. She's like, "I don't need to see it. No, I'm just asking you to stop doing this. Like, I didn't ask to see it. I asked you if you were chewing gum." She's like, she's like absolutely like the most composed I could imagine somebody being while talking to him. And then you can see later him do this kind of like cocks his head to the side, does this "I'm wiping my mouth" look, and like pops a piece of gum into his mouth. It's like,
these were big league chew.
He's just, the guy is out of his
he's off
gourd.
the hinges.
Yeah.
And you just want to be like, where is his legal team in all of this? But
I know.
There's a demon in there running the show.
That's obviously what's happening, and his base is going to be riled up because this is another conspiracy. That's what's so cool about him having all this shit happen to him, is just like, it's just such a pile on. Like, he's wrong at every turn. He constantly lies and perjures himself, and the explanation is going to be, it's a setup. And his base is going to fucking eat it up.
Even just on like the judgment stuff, like, like Jeremiah was saying, like, he got found guilty of defamation. This is all about what his penalties are going to be. How much does he owe the family in restitution, and what the punitive like fees and stuff are going to be. And he's on the air talking about how like dead set the judge is against him and how it's all a setup. And he's like, for 2 weeks, she's been telling the jury that I'm guilty. She won't even let me tell them that I'm innocent. And it's like, well, you were found guilty. You were found guilty by default, bud. It's like, not up for debate at this point. There's no place for you to discuss whether or not you did the things that that's over. That's over. That's done. Now we're going to see how much money you have, and we're going to hold you upside down by your ankles and just shake the pennies out of your pockets. But the funny things that he did, like, he had so many missteps during this that are hilarious. And it's just it's so clear that, like, I think to me what it looks like is like he's a slave to the persona that he's built for himself, and to the adoration of the audience. He prioritizes
Stockholm syndrome to his own fucking false narrative.
Well, he prioritizes that above all else. Like, he's literally acting against his own best interest. Like, even the most simple ways, he's acting against his own best interest to like keep the ruse going with his audience. Mm-hmm. And I mean, at one point this week, he posted a picture. Well, the Infowars posted a photo of the judge with fire behind her. He said, he's like on air talking about the judge, and he's like, before this, she was involved with CPS, which, I don't have to tell you guys. I mean, they've been involved in child pornography and child trafficking and stuff like that. Like indirectly accused her of being a pedophile and a child trafficker. He like literally one of the days when he was sentenced on what was it, the restitution payments. The day that he was sentenced on that, they're reading, like, I don't know if it's victim impact statements or whatever they're called, but he skips out on one of the fathers of the victims giving his testimony about how it all affected him and stuff like that to do his show. While he's on the show, he's talking about how the father is slow and how he's probably autistic. And then literally, like, he cannot turn it off. He cannot just be quiet. He can't talk about something else. Like, there's literal mental illness here that has like total control of him. He's been able to channel it into, a marketable company and skill and like kind of a mini empire for himself. But like, he's not in control of it anymore. It's got total control of him.
Well, Casey, he's turning a leaf, as he told the jury. Quote, I really do want to try to change and be a more positive force when it comes to things like mass shootings.
Oh, I mean, well, credit what credit's due.
He wants to be a positive force for good when it comes to mass shootings.
Let's just have a big round of booze for Alex Jones.
There we go. Let's do that.
Oh my gosh. So, plug for Knowledge Fight. Again, it's kind of depressing some of the time, and it's kind of infuriating, but it also can be really entertaining.
And it'll be fun to see the lengths that Alex will go to spin this. I think he'll go pretty far.
I will go to hell.
And it's going to be fun to see. I can't wait to see how this turns into a creative narrative.
Sam, I think you might be muted. Are you?
Yeah, I had to mute. I had
okay.
Some water running through my pipes. That age-old problem down here in the back corner of my basement, where I've been relegated to podcast. I'm an adult. I own my own goddamn house.
You pig!
Yeah, I was waiting for a drop. Needed the drop.
Go to the basement.
You pig!
And it's flowing again. It's flowing again. Not quite so loud this time. What's crazy is
I don't have a way to squeeze this one in, but since we're talking about plumbing,
when it comes to bathing, and I don't want to bathe in 500 turds or 200.
Which one would you prefer? Doesn't matter at that point.
The more the merrier, I guess.
I did pull up the YouTube clip of the judge ripping into him a little bit. I don't know if it'll play good through my microphone, if it's worth giving it a shot.
Let's try it. Why not?
It's very funny the way that she responds to him. If it doesn't work, we'll just clip it out.
That is not true. You may not say it again. You may not tell this jury that you are bankrupt. That is also not true. You may have filed for bankruptcy. I don't know that, but I've heard that. That doesn't make a person or a company bankrupt. You're already under oath to tell the truth. You've already violated that oath twice today in just those two examples. It seems absurd to instruct you again that you must tell the truth while you testify. Yet here I am. You must tell the truth while you testify. This is not your show. You need to slow down.
I just want to get to her. I want to get to his response to her because it's too good.
Further the message you're wanting to further, and instead only answer the specific and exact question you have been asked. No asides. The comments about discovery, the comments about the larynx,
have sex with me,
the comments about bankruptcy, none of those were responsive to questions. They were just you abusing my tolerance and making asides to the jury improperly, and in at least two cases, untruthfully. Do you understand what I have said? Yes or no? Do you understand what I have said?
Yes, I believe what I said was true. So
yes, you believe everything you say is true, but it isn't. Your beliefs do not make something true. That is what we're doing here. Just because you claim to think something is true does not make it true. It does not protect you. It is not allowed. You are under oath. That means things must actually be true when you say them. Don't talk.
Don't talk.
That's it. It took us a while to get this, so I do apologize. But
I think on behalf of every judge, like in the country, that's like one of those judge moments you dream about. Like that's an Aaron Sorkin written judge moment. Like,
oh my God, it's like it doesn't matter if you. It's just like it doesn't matter if you think what you're saying is true. That's why we're here. It's like that's exactly what we're doing. It does, and her point about it, she's like, it doesn't protect you. It's like people, and I think that's the best point that she made during that, because I feel like where we're at now is everyone goes, but that's just what I believe, as though that's an excuse and that somehow indemnifies you from any consequences for poor belief. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that of course you can think the wrong things about a lot of things, but when it gets to this point, when it gets to Alex Jones level shit, it's just like, sorry, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how true you think what you're saying is when you're saying the opposite of what you texted somebody 2 weeks ago on the stand. Like, that's not a defense. It's just not a defense in the legal system.
You just have to remember, though, that
he's obviously autistic or something. I feel sorry for him.
Just saying.
My goodness.
Good old Alex.
God.
He's having a bad week, so keep him in your prayers.
We're having a good week.
Yep. Pretty accurate.
Well, our guest this week doesn't need a lot of introduction because she's been here before. So we had our good friend Amber back on for a second time. You remember if we talked to her the first time about a year ago, I think it's been almost a year ago.
Dang, I can't believe it's already been a year.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And before we talked a lot about her upbringing and some of the crazy turns and stuff that took, how she got away from religion after, being in the military and stuff like that. But, she also does a lot of volunteer work. She does a lot of stuff with veterans and some political things. And we just really didn't get a chance to get into that the first time. So we were like, man, we want to hear some more about that. So it was cool to talk to her again. She's doing some really cool stuff. And it's definitely worth going and following her on Instagram. I'll put a link to her social media in the episode description. You can also go to amberviola.com, which has some information on some of the stuff that she does and keeps you up to date on her activities. Someday she's going to be running at least Pennsylvania, possibly the United States. So
she better. All I have to say is she better. Definitely Pennsylvania. I absolutely think that she would have a solid run against Dr. Oz. That's just my opinion.
I absolutely think that I'm going to leverage my knowing her into a job with like a Georgian oil company.
Yeah. There you go. No,
one of those no-show board positions with a Chinese investment firm.
She's fantastic. We love Amber. We've stayed in touch with her since, honestly, I think we started talking to her very shortly after we started the podcast.
Very soon.
Yeah. She's just been here since the start. We've become friends. We communicate with her quite regularly. She's a very fun person. Like, I think what's really fun about her is that, she does a lot for her community, for veterans, and it does a lot of activism, and she's done campaigning, as we get into, for the Biden campaign. And like, but she's also a very like regular, normal person. It's not just like all button ups and serious like conversation. She's just fun. She's a fun person to hang out with for doing the podcast. I just following her on Instagram. She just seems like an absolute blast to spend time with. And I hope that we get to actually spend time with her in person someday.
Yeah, absolutely. So, enjoy the episode. We do have one other thing to announce. My buddy Sam is coming to visit me in Wichita in about a week and a half.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to that. While he's here, we're going to do like a live hangout thing on Discord. So, if you're not in our Discord, now's the time to join, because that's where we're going to be during the live hangout. But that's going to be Sunday. Oh my God, what's the date? Sunday the 21st.
Yeah.
So it'll be Sunday evening, the 21st, and you're welcome to jump in, hang out. We're going to be playing some games, maybe watching some fun religious clips, and yeah, it's going to be a blast. So love to talk to you guys, and yeah, should be fun.
So without further ado, enjoy our conversation with Amber Viola. Everybody, we're back with our guest, Amber. We have Amber with us again, and we're super excited about it. Amber, what's up?
Hey, I'm happy to be back. You guys are like my favorite podcast. So.
Oh,
thank you.
You're one of our favorite people, so it works out really well. I like having, we feel like we've made a few friends along the way with this, so that's just been really cool, having some of those people pop in and out. And last time we were talking, we spent a lot of time on your life story, but then it dawned on us that your current life is also interesting, and we didn't talk about any of it. And I was like, oh, geez, we missed we didn't really, I guess that would have been like a 5-hour podcast if we just kept going, but we have a tendency to not really pump the brakes till, I don't know, maybe these guys never end their podcast.
Yeah, we didn't even discuss how you're the press secretary for Dr. Oz.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Right. Trying to get him in there, New Jersey, you cannot have him.
Yeah,
that's what the doctor ordered.
Oh my God.
Yeah, God, that is a lot.
What time?
I'm speaking. I'm tripping up. What is there to say about Dr. Oz running for?
Nothing. There's nothing. There's just nothing to say. It's ridiculous.
He's not the other guy.
Right.
I mean, the other guy seems insane.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, he actually is really
Is he the guy that wears shorts all the time?
No, what's his name?
You're not talking about the Democrat guy. You're talking about the guy Oz ran against.
Yeah,
in the primary.
Okay. Yeah, that guy was off the fucking hinges.
Yeah, he was a nuts.
I mean, that's kind of the brand now, I guess. I guess Democrats' only hope is that they are doubling. Republicans are really doubling down on these off the hinges caricature type people
right they now. Have running, and people seem to be okay with it. And so I mean, because I know like if the Democrats lose in this governor race we have for Pennsylvania, there's so much stuff that's going to turn really, really conservative really quickly, because the people who are running have already been saying that they'll make sure that you can't get an abortion here at all. They're going to roll back any type of regulations that Governor Wolf did for like gun control or anything like that. So yeah, they're ready.
It's the abortion one's really mind-boggling to me right now in these states, because by and large, I think it's like 70-something% of the country is like not in favor of just banning abortion outright. Yeah. So like to have all these people just popping up being like, right now in the heat of Roe v. Wade being overturned and everyone just being so fucking bad.
Crazy about it, just so crazy and intense. And it's just like, I people live in these bubbles, I guess, where they just only are around that one type of person to believe that, everyone else feels the same way that they do. It's not like this liberal agenda. It's like, no, most people in the United States actually like support Roe v. Wade. You're the minority on this.
And even the people who are on the fence about abortion on an ethical level, there's so much like they do have a level of grace for gray areas.
Yeah. But recently there's been some crazy gray areas popping up in the news. The 10-year-old girl from Ohio, this is happening, and that story just sounds insane. And
so insane.
And so it's just like, how are people okay with any of that?
I think it's like it's just ideology. It's like when you've sold yourself completely to this ideology, then it's like it's a test of will to hold the line, even in the face of like just total common sense resistance.
Because I saw somebody ask today online, like, do these people really believe this? Like, do they truly really believe this, or are they just following an ideology and just believing all in to it, so whatever it says goes, and it's just so crazy.
It feels like a second.
There's definitely a line in there somewhere where like that. I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that most of those people are very anti-abortion altogether, but like there is a line in there where that mentally they're considering like some sort of middle ground, but I think it really comes down to like, hey, I'm all in. I support this as a in principle, and therefore like no exceptions, and this is God's will. So that little girl will figure it out.
Yeah. That one's really frustrating because I don't think that I don't know. I guess you'd really find out how not good of people some people are if a situation like that came up, but it's hard for me to believe that almost anybody I know who's still fairly conservative on abortion would be like, yeah, if my 12-year-old got raped and got pregnant, I would definitely be like, it's the Lord's will for you to keep that and you're 12. I mean, they might be like, well, we'll raise the kid, but it's not right for you to kill it, so you have the baby and we'll raise it as our own, which still just feels so dark that that someone would go that route. But I don't know, it seems like,
well, I feel like that family then would lie and just say it was their baby and like not their grandbaby, and it would be a whole thing.
Yeah, probably.
There's definitely one of those situations when I was in school. Yeah.
That's they're like, why'd you homeschool your kid that year? And you're just like,
exactly.
The kid like kind of disappears
had mono, and they weren't at school for 10 months.
Mono doesn't actually exist. Like they're just like everyone who's ever suffered from mono is really just like being pregnant.
It's a conspiracy. I got the documents right here.
I'm fine with it. Claim mono if that's what you want to do.
Now that we started out on a high note of teen pregnancy and abortion. Okay, so I don't remember. It's like funny to think about where we might have left off, as though I don't know if anyone else will remember, but
we talked a little bit about your work with veterans.
Yeah.
And you told us a little bit about like the office that you hold with is it the
American
VFW
Legion
or the American Legion?
American Legion.
That's right. Okay. But I don't know that we really got into any of your like political work that you do, and I think that's where especially given the state of Pennsylvania, very curious to hear what that's like and what all you're working on.
Yeah. All right. So so when I've actually haven't been doing all of this kind of like political stuff for too long. It's been the last probably three to 4 years that I really dove head first. Back in the day when I was a Republican, I did campaign for George Bush. That was my first election. So it was 2004 happening. So I worked for his campaign and everything. And I remember going to my first election party and stuff like that and just being like hooked. And then as I kind of started going down that road of, deconversion, I started becoming more liberal and, aligning more with Democratic views than Republican views. So I switched parties. I started working on the Obama campaign. I got to see him speak when he spoke in Denver in front of just like millions of people. It was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
And I knew that, I wanted to be involved in politics. I wasn't really sure how or like even how to really start getting into it, I guess. Like, how do you go and like, hey, how do I get into politics? And when I moved up here, once I got out the military, I moved back to Scranton, Pennsylvania. That's where I'm at right now. And I went to a rally. I remember sitting in my house and it was, after George Floyd, it was during COVID and things like that. And it was like a Black Lives Matter rally was going on. And I was like, wow, I really want to go down there to it. And I went. And then I just remember standing there crying the whole time. Like I couldn't even get my life together to even like say anything because I just was, I don't know. I just felt all of these emotions and just like this enormous energy with everyone and like a cohesive voice and people were like mourning and people were sad. And I ended up getting on the mic and speaking and, somebody recorded it. And that kind of was like my first ever like political like speech or any type of thing, activism publicly that I really had ever done. And then I just kind of dove in head first whenever I could, whenever I saw there was anything that, I really believed in and was passionate about. I started trying to get involved with those issues in those organizations. And I started getting involved in my local community. I was working with veterans because I'm a veteran and my community is very veteran heavy and centered. But we also have, a minority population and we have a lot of refugees that come here and stuff. And I want people to have like a great life experience here that I've been able to have. I was privileged, I grew up middle class. My parents were in the military and I either was homeschooled or went to private school. And then when I was going to college, I graduated from a private university up here and I was able to get a job. Part of the reason was because I went to that university and things and I had a good education. And I wanted everybody to be able to kind of have that same leg to stand on. We say that, everybody has the same opportunities and pull yourself by your bootstraps and stuff. But then everybody really doesn't, am I starting with a leg up growing up the way I did, as opposed to somebody who grew up like, in Alabama and went to a school that barely had any funding, no, I'm going to have a leg up on them. So I really just wanted to get in there and kind of just work with my community. And I found that if you ask questions, people will give you the answer and people will kind of like point you in the right direction and stuff and, say, hey, how can I help with this? And that's it. And volunteer for things and find people who are running on issues that you personally care about. or that you believe in and stuff, and just get organized. And one of the first big Black Lives Matter rally that we had here in Scranton was organized by teenagers in high school. I mean, they were 16 and 17 years old. And,
it's really cool.
We're up here and, it's very conservative up here. And they had, 1,000 some people come out to this rally for Black Lives Matter. And I just thought that was absolutely amazing. I was so impressed.
Yeah.
And something they said was like, we were waiting for somebody to do it, and then nobody did it, and I was like, wow, yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I feel like that time in all the Black Lives Matter rallies that were popping up in places, because I went to a few around here, and it was very similar. It was like, I mean, there are some bigger ones that in the city that were organized by some nonprofits that were in the area, but a lot of them were that they were teenagers or early 20s.
Yeah.
And just like said the same thing. They're like, I guess I'll just do it because there isn't one around here.
Yeah.
And of course, what was strange in my town, there was like, my town's small and super white. And surprisingly, the turnout was good. But it felt so strange because it was all like, well, you guys can't, like, there was all these like stipulations. They're like, you guys can't march down the street. You can't do this. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
right.
And then then you get into that feeling of like, do you have to listen to this? Like, we can't all just walk down the street simultaneously.
And what are they going to do? Yeah.
So dumb. I was like, this feels like strange. I was like, feels like we should start maybe breaking some of these rules, but also like, I don't know. I'm not a ringleader on that kind of stuff. I'll be honest.
In those little places like that, though, I held a Biden rally in my town, and my town is a village because it's that small, and it's definitely Trump territory 100%. And I held a Biden car rally, like down our main street and around and stuff, and it was. I mean, so the Trump rally had like 29 cars, and I think our rally had like 35. And you know what I mean? And so,
whoa,
yeah, woo, big turnouts and stuff. But I loved that it was friendly and that people came out. But then on the other hand, what surprised me was the amount of people that were like terrified. And there was people who were legitimately scared, and I would get messages on Facebook and phone calls like, hey, I support you guys and I'll give you money. I'll donate to whatever you need. But like, I don't want to be in it because they didn't want people to know because they were scared of like what repercussions or consequences. My mom had a Biden sign in her yard, and she said that a couple people came in and told her like, oh, I want to put one in my yard, but like, I'm scared that somebody's going to rip it out, or like, worst case scenario, shoot up my yard or something because of that. And I was just like, that's so insane.
Yeah. How crazy. I mean, how fucking wild is it that we're here? Like, I mean, at what point in history was it like that big of a deal to like support your candidate with a sign?
Right. And that's what I wonder
fear
too.
Of retaliation.
Are there still signs up where you guys are? And now there's like a whole bunch of different ones. So like today I was driving home and there was a bunch of new like Biden's an idiot with like his face in it. There was like somebody must have had a sale because there was like a bunch of those around, a bunch of new like I voted for Trump, don't blame me, like
that's a good
humongous.
A lot of let's go Brandon flags.
A lot. And I was like, when has this ever been like this, that people have kept doing this after an election has happened?
I think there's a guy in his yard, like on my way to my warehouse, which is in the closest town, and he has like a homemade FJB, just the 3 letters, like in lights in his front yard. And
wait, in lights?
I don't know. I see a lot of those. Yeah, like he made a sign and then wrapped it in Christmas lights.
Like, where are they ordering this stuff from?
You know what was weird too is like there was a couple of these like pop-up stands, like, when you drive down the road and like you'll see somebody set up out of a trailer and they're selling like
fireworks,
big rugs with tigers on them and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There was like those, a couple of those around. Yeah, exactly. It was like a check cashing place or something, and they've got a trailer with the doors open, and it's all just like this weird non-licensed MAGA merch.
When last
So
that
strange.
election, I drove people to the polls, and almost all of the people that I drove were all Trump supporters, and it was just a collection of hilarity that was like, I mean, I had a great time, you know. It was like everybody was kind of starving to get out because it was during COVID and stuff. So, you know, I'm driving this big van, but people were hilarious, and you know, were just really serious about him and laughing and joking and wishing me luck, you know, and everything. And it was quite a riot. And they all of them had gear too, and you know, and like pizzazz and stuff, their little bit of flair on and everything. And I was just like, what? Why do they do this?
Oh, he was a merch selling machine.
For real.
I mean, pumped it out. I think, okay, so my question for you is like, so you heard from the community there a lot of feedback that they were like afraid to publicly support Biden.
Yeah.
Knowing that community, I mean, because you work in that community and you know a lot of those people, like, was that fear warranted, or was that something that you feel like outside sources like the national media were kind of building up that fear that didn't necessarily apply to where you live?
I think both. I do think that there was some people who, you know, kind of drank the Kool-Aid and kind of were angry. But I think down here in a lot of places, you had people you grew up with. So like you went to school with these people, you know, their grandparents, everybody still lives on the same streets. And it's like most of you are still going to get along when this is going on and even after it's going on. Now, some people do take it to the extreme where now it's like, I don't really want to hang out with you because of some of the things you said. But for the most part, you have a lot of people really just getting along together. With that being said, have I had death threats and things like that? Absolutely. I had some
Really?
when I was working for the city, I had some, those were just like racist, crazy threats on a voicemail. And, you know, I had death threats in my DMs and different when I was going to different protests and things. So those things are very real. You know, and was it just keyboard warriors, you know, sitting back and being mad, or could it actually have been real people? Who knows?
Right. What do you do? I mean, do you report that to, or you just what
yeah, I
what
mean,
did you do
some of them I
that?
didn't, you know, because I was like, oh, this is whatever. And then I was like, oh, okay, well then I talked to the police about what I should do. And one of my best friends is a state trooper. So I asked him, like, what do I need to do if this happens and stuff like that. So,
okay.
I mean, you should. It's hard to not, like, you feel silly almost sometimes reporting them.
I can imagine.
But then
that.
if everybody feels the same way, then nobody's going to be reporting these people who are, you know, doing these things. So,
right. And that's how literally none of these, like, we don't weed out any of the crazies because we keep watching them be fucking crazy on the internet all day, every day on fucking 4chan and whatever. And all of a sudden someone does something and we're like, oh yeah, we've had 10 years of red fucking flags.
Right. Exactly.
And now we're like, holy shit, he did something. It's like, it's getting old to experience that. It's like, maybe we should just report everyone. There's a line and it doesn't have to be too far gone before we're just like, and reported because you seem unhinged and we'll just you can deal with the consequences.
Yeah, if you're MAGA Bro 69 making death threats on Stormfront, like maybe we don't need you out here.
Right, you need to go talk to somebody
out here in these streets. I think it's. I feel like you know, okay. So we've talked a little bit about like that Hillsong documentary that came out on Discovery Plus, and I kind of had mixed feelings about it, where like watching it as a person who came from, you know, similar sort of background, like some of the things that I think were really shocking to people who didn't really have a foundation in Christianity, like purity culture and things like that were just shocking to them because they're just not familiar with it. And to me, on the other hand, I'm like, this is in the documentary. Like, this is pretty run of the mill.
I wanted the deeper stuff. Like, I wanted like the stuff I felt like they started getting into, then they would stop. I was like, that's what I want to know about.
Well, I think like from the standpoint, like on the issue of like the Trump campaign and things, I imagine it was a similar sort of effect where people who were totally outside of those conservative circles were looking in and just being like, what is happening?
Right.
Like, what is going on here? The level of dedication and the, you know, the arrogance and the like insistence and stuff is just crazy. But I don't know. I mean, working, because I worked, like, I mean, I say worked, I was a kid, but like I went and handed out signs for Bush back in the day. And, you know, I was at Liberty. I mean, we were all like gonna vote for God, what was his name?
McCain? Was it when McCain?
John McCain.
Yeah.
Liberty?
There's some of it that's almost like, I think it's like I can understand it a little more, having been, you know, having had a foot in that realm for so long, where like some of it is still shocking, and some of the other stuff you're like, well, yeah, I mean, of course they're all in on this guy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Because when you're in it now and you look, that stuff seems so normal to us. Because I know that you'll be talking to somebody about something and you start saying it and they're looking at you like you're insane. And you're like, what? And they're like, that's not a normal thing. Like, no, most people don't go through that or didn't have to. So so then you kind of have to realize, like, oh, okay, so this wasn't, you know, you're in your little tiny little oddball, you know, sect and stuff. I was telling people about not being able to listen to secular music for a year. One of my friends was like, what's secular? And I was like, okay, first of all, that's a whole, like,
that's privilege. That's privilege right there.
Because I was like, how would you, I heard that word so much, but then I realized now, I don't think I really have ever said it outside of the bounds of talking about Christianity.
Right.
You know, my dad was like, he's always been a big fan of the Eagles. And when I was a kid, he got they got that like reunion album that they did called Hell Freezes Over. My dad got that album and they scribbled out hell on the CD jacket.
That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
That's good.
My God.
It's so funny. Like I
understand that level of seriousness though, because I lived that. That is something that 100% would have happened in my house. And that, you know, and so yeah, I can see how you go from that to a Trump t-shirt. You know, it's just, you know, it's like one step over.
That's the ideology we were talking about earlier, where like it's this weird, like I'm all in. I'm you know, I'm 100% on board with the ideology. And in that case, it's like I'm making my house a sanctuary from secular, ungodly input, and that means like no swear words, not even hell on a CD jacket or whatever else. And that's the level of commitment you get from people that are like, you know, you're like, can we at least rape and incest? Like, can we agree on that? And they're like,
no.
You know, God has a plan.
God has a plan.
Which is always a great default, because that's the conversation killer right there. Like, there's nothing left to say. So I mean, I don't know, but God does. So conversation ended. I can go home now, right? Like, oh my God. That's why it gets to a point where there's a lot of people who want to like just kind of scream across the line and just be mad. It's like, that's taking a bigger toll on you than it is on them, I swear. Like, if you need to step back, you got to just fucking relax and know that like you saying anything to them is not going to change their mind. Oh, there's probably one or two people in their lives that could influence the way that they think, and you're not one of them. Mm-hmm. So just redirect your energy to something useful.
And that's the thing is like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing to help out this cause that you believe in? You know what I mean? If you're saying that, well, I don't want there to be abortions. So, okay, do you want to prevent, you know, pregnancies from happening? Do you want to help teach kids sex education so that when they decide to have sex, they're doing it safely and with the proper equipment and stuff, you know? Or do you want to just...
A penis and vagina? Not the proper equipment?
Yes.
Sure they know what they're
You know, but it's like all of the things that prevent abortion, they also don't want to do. So that's kind of where it gets very confusing to me, because it's like, then give out contraceptives and make them easier to get, and, you know, make sure people know what they're doing, make sure people have healthcare and people have access to healthcare. And they're closing all these medical clinics and doctors' offices and hospitals all around the country are closing. So there's women who are pregnant and they have to drive 2 hours to go see a doctor, and they're not receiving prenatal care like their whole entire pregnancy. You know, the Black maternal death rate, I'm 5 times more likely to die on childbirth than your wife is. You know, in New York, it's 12 times more likely. You know, even though I have a degree, that still doesn't matter. It still makes me then 4 times more likely to die. You know, so it's like all of these things are happening once people are having babies and are pregnant, and we're not doing anything to stop them and fix them. And our healthcare system is disastrous, and our maternal death rate is insane, especially for the level of sophistication that our country is at. And it's just really sad.
Yeah. And it's so far off from the rest of the like modern world, I guess. First world, I should say. It's like way far off. We're so far below them. It's also that it's on the whole topic of healthcare, like outside of even pregnancy and maternal death rates, like it's bad across, it's so much worse across the board for Black and brown people. It's just like they're like I just listened to a podcast for one of my classes, and they talked about the rates at which prescription painkillers are prescribed for white people who ask for them because they're in major pain, and Black people who report the exact same symptoms. And it is crazy.
And that's
how
why
much
we
more
were
white
left
people
out the opioid crisis. Like, that's why we're not in it. You know, we're largely not in it because of doctors not believing we're actually in pain, and they don't prescribe us pain medicine. I mean, there's like surveys done in 2019 about medical students who believed that Black people experienced less pain than white people. They believed that Black people had thicker skulls than white people did, and they believed that Black people had thicker skin. So, you know, you have people who are now doctors believing these types of things that are practicing, and they also believe that, you know, Black people go to the doctor and they're, you know, they want pain medication and they want pills, and, you know, they're malingering and things like that. So that's how they treat it. So they don't actually prescribe us pain medicine, you know. So that's why there was this whole opioid crisis where largely the African American community wasn't even involved in, simply due to racism.
Yeah.
So it has its upside.
Right.
Yeah. The silver linings of racism. I knew there was one. Don't tell my dad that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What was okay? So if you were involved in the Obama campaign and then also involved in the Biden campaign, like, what was the difference in just like the energy, the atmosphere, and stuff like that? Because I feel like Obama was just like this lightning bolt of hope at the time, you know, and Biden's not Trump.
Okay, so I would say for the most part, Democrats, younger Democrats, not like corporate Democrats, you know, establishment or whatever, did not want Joe Biden as our nominee. We pretty much wanted anybody else except Joe Biden. You know, when you were just on a Democratic side, we felt like he was too old, been in politics too long, and wasn't going to have the spark and energy needed to really go against Trump. And he was just going to be another run-of-the-mill Democrat. So,
and he proved us all wrong, right?
No. Just a run-of-the-mill bowling pin.
So the excitement wasn't there. The energy was there as far as wanting to get Trump out of office and wanting anybody but Trump. And knowing the, you know, the impact of the Supreme Court justices and all those things that's kind of what had people panicked and wanting to make sure that we had a Democrat in there to kind of like smooth it over and kind of right the ship. You know, when Obama was running, we had hope. We truly believed like this was going to change the world, you know, that he was going to be able to really make a huge impact with America and, you know, the economy and put us, you know, have a good place for us on the map of the world and things like that. I think people really were looking for like a new beginning. Joe Biden was not that.
Now,
just so you can have a chance to clarify, like, do you still think that Obama was born in Kenya? We could strike that from the record now if you want. Sorry.
My daughter, she's got to meet him twice. So my first Obama story, I was at Fort Lee. It was my last enlistment. I was pregnant with my daughter. I was an instructor, and the president was coming on his like farewell tour. So I was pregnant, and y'all, I was dying. Like I was having the worst pregnancy. I was so sick. So by the time he comes, I'm sweating. I'm like, my fingers are swollen. My feet are swollen. My boots are now untied. Any part of makeup I wanted to have on my face is gone. Like, I'm literally like, as soon as I leave here, I actually have to go see my doctor. So I'm standing up and I'm like waiting in line, and I see him, and I wanted to take a selfie, and I couldn't even like get my life together enough to take a selfie. But I showed him, I was like, you know, President Obama, and he rubbed my belly, and I got to take some pictures of him, and it was pretty cool. So then fast forward to during the election, I was down in Philly to go watch him speak at the Link, and he was going to visit some canvassers before he was going to go speak that night. So I had the opportunity to take my daughter over there and then go meet with him before he went out to speak. And she got to see him, and she went viral, the little Obama baby, and she was standing there next to him, and he like kneeled down to talk to her, and he was like, I wish I could hug you, but I'm trying to be good for COVID. And like, it was just so cool. And I got to talk to him, and I said, sir, you know, this is the second time you met my daughter. The first time you met her, I was at Fort Lee or whatever. I'm like whimpering now at this point. But that was just so cool. And the pictures of her are just like so precious. And he loved, like, you can tell that he loved so cool. Little kids.
And not the way Biden seems to.
No.
I was going to say, he didn't sniff her or anything, did he?
He didn't sniff her? He didn't sneak up behind her and sniff her? That's good.
That is really cool. It is so weird to look back at, because when Obama was in office, so like 2012 especially, I was peak of my Alex Jones phase. I was not a fan. And now, you know, you look back on it and you're like, remember when we had a guy who could talk? Right. It wasn't just offensive every time he opened his mouth.
He could read the teleprompter properly and not
I need the confidence of Alex Jones. Like, that man can take a before and after and look exactly the same, and you can't tell him nothing. Okay.
Oh my God.
So so when you did campaign, what was campaigning like for Biden in Pennsylvania? Because Pennsylvania went Trump in 2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they went Biden in 2020.
It was
supposedly.
Right?
Supposedly.
Yeah. If
allegedly
you didn't get so many extra ballots when you were campaigning.
And I think that's what so like when Hillary lost and the polls were so wrong, for me, I just honestly was like, I think that people were either embarrassed to say, you know, or just, you know, didn't really want people to find out who they were going to vote for, and then voted for Trump, you know, and that's how he won. And I feel like a lot of people were shocked by that, but I really wasn't. I was like, people like him, and they may not say it out loud, but they like him and they like what he's doing. And nobody likes Hillary. So they're gonna go and they're gonna vote for her. And I think that on the same token, with Biden I think there was a lot of people who kind of were just fed up, and they didn't really know what the right answer was going to be. And they had said so much in the 4 years previous that they kind of just went ahead and just voted and didn't really say anything and tell anybody, you know? And, you know, because people were like, I can't believe that, you know, he would have won after. And I'm like, yeah, well, Trump got on a lot of people's nerves, and some people just didn't say anything, and I think that people just wanted kind of he pissed off a lot of people and a lot of veterans and a lot of like stupid stuff.
Actually
like
interested
just
to know
dumb
more
stuff.
about that.
Yeah. Like just
because veterans would veterans typically, I feel like any military people lean more conservative. Is that accurate? Or
I would say yes, but I would also say no, because that is definitely like straight white male veteran is
okay,
conservative, Republican, yay guns, like all of that. But the military is very, very brown, so like 43% of the army is minority. So you have a lot of these branches that have a lot of black and brown people in them, and they're still voting Democrat, and they're still supporting Democratic policies even while being in uniform. And I think that a lot of people tend to forget that as black sailors, soldiers, and airmen, we're still black. And we're still treated as such, and I got called a nigger in uniform. I had run-ins with law enforcement and different things and stuff. And being a veteran doesn't shield me from racism, and being, an active duty didn't shield me from racism, so there's still definitely that divide among enlisted people in the military and things like that it's like, well, a lot of the white men are still and women are still very conservative, still very Republican, and the Democrats the black people and brown people are mostly still Democrats. So
it does feel like that is because one of the things that comes up a lot in elections is like the Democrats. You find a lot of Republican, of course, this kind of mixes with being white male, as you just pointed out, but you'll find a lot of Republican candidates over the years that have had military backgrounds, and that works in their favor, but that always seems to be missing from Democrats and their background. It doesn't feel like they have, I guess it just always feels to me like they're not reaching they're just not, I feel like they're not really reaching people in the military the same way that the Republican Party is, as an intent. Like, let's reach these people. Let's speak this way.
I don't think they are. I really don't. I don't feel like that's a focus of people that they really focus on at all. I don't really feel like they feel like there's a real market for that. And I think that's due to just the stereotype of it being, one type of person. So part of what I want to do with helping veterans and stuff and helping my community is for people to know that there's female veterans, that there's gay veterans, that there's Latino veterans, there's black veterans, everybody. And that you have all these different people, and they need to be represented and seen, because if they're seen, then people start to realize, like, okay, we have a whole different group of people that we're here that we're kind of just missing out on. So I think they're there, and I just don't think that's really a focus of Democrats to try to like reach those people.
What it seems to me like that subject is really weird, and like I didn't serve in the military, so it's outside looking in.
You just steal valor when you're out trying to get a discount at Chili's.
Right. Like the only 5'6" Navy SEAL out there, at the bar. But it seems like, I don't know, from like a ground perspective, given that you've been in the military for a long time and been around the military for a long time, like, was there like a noticeable policy difference between, the different candidates or the different presidents that we've had in that time period? Because it seems like we don't really have like a necessarily like a peace party these days.
Yeah.
They kind of, both parties sort of back, foreign conflict and things like that.
Yes, there is. I mean, you can definitely feel the shift in the way that things come down. I served under President Obama and President Trump, and when he banned trans people from the military, people got kicked out, and were sent home. So that had a real effect on people and on policy and different things like that. And, when the president would get into different spats with world leaders and things like that, units would be put on alert because there could be different activity in those areas and stuff. So when we would get raises and different things like that, obviously you would know that those things happen whenever there's a change to different VA policies and stuff that will come in. Like the policy under Obama that allowed you to have access to care to where you can go to doctor's offices that are closer to your house, and instead of having to go all the way to the VA. And now there's no, like, it doesn't have to be like this long referral process. It's like that can be your doctor since you live right here and we're going to cover it for you. So things like that.
Crazy that that's so recent.
But
like,
yeah,
it's just, it blows my mind. Like, sorry to derail you. It just blows my mind the lack of help that anyone gets after they're out of the military. Like, in the military,
and that's
they
the
get
thing.
generally
And I think
paid
that people
poorly
really
and stuff anyway. But
confuse when Republicans talk about raising the defense budget and things like that. That doesn't go into troops' pockets. Like, when you first are enlisted, especially if you come in married or with a kid, like, you're under the poverty level. You qualify for welfare. You qualify for WIC. You know, you qualify for all of these things because you don't make enough money at all. It's just that you have these benefits. So, like, you're making no money, but you also have a place to sleep and to eat, you know? But you don't make a lot of money. And I think that people think that when we have a big defense budget that the troops are being treated well. And it's like, you're not. You still are receiving the same menial little amount of money that, you know, that you were before. And
yeah, I remember my brother-in-law joined the Air Force, and they were like, he gets there and he's like, I have to buy my own uniform. Like, are you serious?
Right? Yeah.
They don't hand those out to people.
About that.
They hand it out to you, but you bought it. It's coming out of your paycheck.
Yeah, it just comes out of your paycheck. Yeah. They didn't ask.
And they're expensive.
It's so dumb.
Oh my gosh, so dumb.
What a policy. Oh my god.
And you have to buy your own uniform.
I didn't know about that one.
But, sorry. Anyway, you were talking about that shit, that Obama and making that policy change so you can visit a doctor closer to your house. And I feel like you were going to maybe mention another policy shift that you experienced, but I don't know if that's
they changed the amount of money that you received as a stipend when you were going to school from active duty to Department of Defense. So that gave a shift in our pay. So, like, some of us lost a lot of money during that time. So you saw policies enacted in real time like that. So when they come to the VA and they come to veterans and stuff, a lot of those things you do really see happen. So it can really matter who is in office and kind of what they're trying to make happen.
It seems like it's a lot of the non-sexy stuff that doesn't make it into the campaign speeches, and
because right now they just passed
like
the burn pit bill to cover veterans who were in burn pit areas and who suffered from different types of toxins and different things that were being denied by the VA, and their claims were being denied, and people were dying. I mean, there's people who are our age who are dying of brain cancer and weird stomach cancers and things like that due to being exposed to burn pits. And the same thing happened to Vietnam veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange. And some of them were in areas where they said, oh, you weren't affected, but clearly they were. And they were denying their claims. Hopefully this will make it better so that it's more of an umbrella scope to be covered, so that it can be like, you were in Iraq, that whole area is covered. We don't care where you were, you're covered, you were there. So that, I mean, it's crazy that it's crazy that you have to prove anything, and that you're begging people for healthcare, like when Jon Stewart was begging people to help the 9/11 victims. You know, it's like, what are we doing?
I know the fact that you have to fight for that, you have to push for that, you have to have all these backroom dealings about it, the constant denial of the awful conditions that people have been subjected to, the gaslighting around, like, no, that's not what this is, for decades, only to be like, oh, all right.
Right.
All jokes aside, we passed a bill and this should help the ones who are still alive. So you can thank us later.
That's what I met with Senator Casey about. We were talking about the bill, the burn pit bill, and how it had passed, and how they're talking about the push forward, and kind of, he was asking us basically our issues with the VA, what we like about the VA, and any specifics about the bill, how we would like implement some of the policies like that. So it was a really good interesting conversation to be able to have with him. So
yeah,
it was really cool.
How did you get into like kind of moving into that position? I know you've been doing a lot of advocacy work. I don't know if this kind of goes along the lines of asking their questions that you mentioned before and people pointing in the right direction and just trying to dive in where you can. But how did you get to this?
I started going to political rallies for local politicians in my area, and I started, meeting them and talking to them and kind of trying to get to know, like, what are the issues or problems that we have around here. And as I did that, and I was involved with different activities, people would hear like, oh, well, Amber's a veteran, and I had some great interviews that TV and newspaper did on me. When I was going to Marywood, I was president of the student veterans on campus. So that position allowed me to kind of meet different politicians and different people in that world and plan events and have different fundraiser and stuff. So you get to meet a lot of people in the veterans community. And, I kind of will always say yes to things. And, people would ask me, I had met Congressman Matt Cartwright a few times at some of his rallies, and he really supports veterans here in the area. And he had an opening on a panel that he holds that selects selectees to go to military academies. And so, somebody asked me if they could, he was going to give me a call and they needed my phone number, and he called me and he said, hey, Amber, we talked for a long time, and he asked me if I would like to be on this panel that he had. And I was like, absolutely. And I was just screaming and freaking out and stuff. And sometimes, it's just saying yes to things and being willing. When you kind of are willing to put yourself out there, I think people notice that, and they know that, and they're receptive to that, because people would just ask me to participate in different things because they had seen me at different rallies or different political campaigns, and just being willing to kind of being involved in my community. And so then, I get asked to do that with veterans. And then, I was able to be in some commercials for the DNC and for the President Biden when he was running. So me and my daughter were in a couple commercials. And so that was really fun. And then doing things where, so like I said, I had drove people to the polls. Well, I was just talking to some people on Facebook about going to vote, and people were saying how like they didn't have a way to get there. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe if I just see if like, how would I be able to drive people to the polls if I wanted to? And I posed the question on Facebook, and I asked, and I had people donated $100 so I could get like supplies. Somebody donated a van. People donated gas money.
So cool.
And different things. And all I did was just say on Facebook, I was like, hey, if I wanted to like drive people to the polls, like how could I do that? What could I really do? And people kind of just reached out to me. When my area went to virtual school, I didn't want them to, due to the fact that we live in a poor area. Not everybody has internet. Not everybody has Wi-Fi. Not everybody has computers and things like that. And we went to virtual school, and our school, it took almost the school year for them to receive any type of computers or anything. They didn't receive any.
Come on.
So there was literally students who were sharing their mom's phone to do homework, students who were at school. And this is kind of where like privilege comes in when people talk about privileges that different people have. This is some people's experience during COVID. And when people talk about our kids lost 2 years of school and are going to be really far behind. I had a family that was living in a hotel, and there was four kids, and they were sharing their mom's phone. So they would each pick a day to attend class and then to do their homework that night. So they would rotate. So the kids aren't even able to go to school every day. I had another mom who had 2 kids. She worked all day, so her kids pretty much had to go to see like a sitter or daycare. Got home at 6 o'clock, each kid did homework for an hour, ate dinner, and then went to bed. So they try to squeeze 8 hours of school into like 1 hour that, the kid is sharing a phone and things like that. And there were some families that received 1 laptop and they had 5 kids. So I saw the need. One of my, I saw somebody who needed a laptop. Their kid, they were like, hey, my kid's about to do virtual school and they don't have a laptop. Like, I don't have internet. They don't have a laptop. Like, what are they supposed to do? So I just bought a computer. I bought a laptop and I started doing that with every check. And then some of my friends found out and they said, hey, why don't you advertise this so people start donating? So people started donating and we started getting laptops and, we worked with, the news talked about it. We worked with youth shelter organizations in the area and different things like that. And we're able to kind of do those things, but that's not to like toot my own horn, but that's just to say, like, just do whatever. Like, if you see something happening,
that's a big deal.
Just like start doing it. And it doesn't have to be in like some deep, like really planned, well thought out way. Go on Facebook and say, hey, I want to drive people to the polls. What do I do? How do I start? What do I do with that? And, and people kind of will help you along the way. And, once you find that need, kind of just go for it. And it doesn't have to be polished. I'm for just buying one laptop for, the cheapest one I can find out of my paycheck. And, just trying to help a kid be able to do virtual school. But, you see something that you think is ridiculous. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. So I spoke out about that a lot, and there was a lot of people. There were so many people in my community who assumed that every single kid received a laptop right off the bat. Did not even think that there was kids that didn't have internet, that didn't have Wi-Fi. I had parents message me and apologize because I had a woman tell me I was pushing for virtual school because I was so scared that my kids were going to get sick. But we have Wi-Fi in our house. We have laptops. The kids have a tablet. She was like, I didn't even think about kids who don't have any of those things. And a parent who's going to be home to be able to do that and to kind of be able to help them.
Yeah.
And that's going on a whole nother tangent. But yeah.
No, that's interesting though. And like, I don't have kids, so I'm totally out of the loop on some of that stuff. But I imagine there's so many things like this when you're talking about like, people advocating for policy, not knowing like the downsides of those things and how it affects people that aren't in the exact same situation as them. I mean, seeing that happen, knowing the reality of some of those families that don't have those resources available to them. Like, I mean, it has to be frustrating to see people just like endlessly advocate for like virtual school ad nauseum because conservatives want to do
right. And it's like, and is that an excuse for them? I don't know, but they don't know. They really just had no idea and just assumed that, well, everyone I know has a computer and, has internet in their homes. So why would I think about anybody else who wouldn't have those things? And there was a lot of people who did, and it is frustrating. And honestly, it's scary. I mean, there's kids' houses that I went into that I don't think should be houses. I'd like simply put, I didn't even know what to say. There was houses that I wanted to just cry. And I'm like, I can't come in here and just be crying in these people's houses. And I mean, and most of them were like clean and stuff. They did whatever they could, but what are you going to do if something's falling apart? Putting lipstick on a
What was your connection to these families? How did you connect to these various families? I'm sorry if you said that. And
No. So basically I would just post about it. I use social media. I used it, I think,
it would just spread around.
Yeah, and it honestly just spread around when I was giving the rides to the polls. The news picked it up from Facebook and saw, so they ran and did a story with it. I started up I have my own website. I bought my domain name because Donald Trump didn't buy his domain name. And they used it against him. So I got mine. But
before someone was like, we're sick of this person. Let's make a shit website in her name.
So I would tell people to sign up at my website, amberviola.com, and people would. And when I started doing the laptop, same thing. I would tell people, to message me if they needed a laptop, or, hit me up on my website and, send a request form and different things. Like, I mean, I had somebody ask me for a laptop maybe like 4 weeks ago. Like, somebody was like, do you still have any laptops that you're giving out? Yeah. And it was so cool. And so these kids would be like, do I have to give this back to you? And I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's yours, dude. Also, because the laptop policy was fucking stupid. So it literally was like, we're going to give this 7-year-old a laptop for the year, but like if they break it, now you have to pay us like $300 or from a laptop we're like making them take. And I was like,
or they would make you buy insurance.
Mine is already broke. Like, mine is like before, you know what I mean? Like, you bumped it against the car before you even get it home. And I mean, they're looking at me like, do I have to give you? No, this is your laptop forever. So like, take care of it and you'll have it for a couple of years. But like, Jesus, like, who comes up with this stuff?
Yeah, my districts did like you could pay like your insurance bill, like you could pay for insurance on it, and you're like, we all know insurance is basically a scam, so this is just the school's way of like trying to bring in extra money. Like,
the school's selling insurance.
Is it like the school's in? That's ridiculous.
I mean, maybe they just have, it's possible. Look, it's possible they partnered with a program or a company that did the laptops, and they might have had a totally separate, like a company manage the whole laptop thing. I don't know. I just know that like when I'm like, I either pay them $300 if this breaks, or I pay them $50 now. Like, so many people don't have the $50, well, and you're just like putting them in a shit position. It's fucking extortion for these people.
Exactly, and that's part of it too, because it you can't pay that up front, so now you're kind of stuck either way.
Yeah, and we all know your kid's gonna break the laptop, right, so
everybody knows.
Hedging your bets wrong, exactly. For sure, but
and the people who have money to buy their kid their own laptop, they don't have to worry about buying that insurance or anything like that. And
it's always the whole situation was bonkers for sure.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that's like, I feel like you look at, because what we see all the time is people that are on the national stage, these people who have clawed their way into the public spotlight to where CNN's talking about their comments on kids doing drag shows or whatever, and like, it seems to me like most of these people are sociopaths.
Yeah.
Like that's how they got to that point. Because I mean, if everybody was doing the things that you're talking about, right? Like if all of these people who are involved in politics were involved at the local level to the point where they're out handing out laptops to families who are trying to figure out how their kid's going to go to school for the next 2 years while COVID's going on, like, there's got to be a significant amount of these people that can just turn a blind eye to it and just continue on. Because I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just, how do you deal with that, the scope of the problem?
The problem is so big, and there's definitely times that I get like really overwhelmed because I feel like I'm not making a dent in anything. I'm reading that like 85% of, babies had that chemical in them from like, when they were born or something. And I'm like, how do I fight a problem that's
adrenochrome?
Yeah, that's this big, But I think it is just on a local level, just trying to help people where they're at and kind of find out what they need, because that's where it matters. And local elections right here matter. Who your mayor is matters. Who's a sheriff in your town matters. Who's a coroner is gonna matter. And a lot of these, different shooting cases and things with police and different things, like who these elective officers, those positions are, they matter. And a lot of times these people run unopposed and just for years.
Yeah.
And nobody runs against them and nobody challenges them at all. Or there's seats that nobody even runs in. And then
that's 90% of things here.
And that's what happens. And then kind of, it's just always just the same old thing. And so to see that and then come in and try to, shake it up and to go out for things. And I went out for city council and I didn't make it. And I went out for the school board and I didn't make it. And that one was hard for me because I felt like that was probably the best interview I've ever did in my life. And I knew I should have got it, you know? But because of that, I ended up getting a job. Because of that, I ended up getting so many opportunities because I put myself out there and I was in a newspaper and like all of those things. And now that I'm out there, now people see that and are like, hey, are you interested in doing this? I heard you on, I heard your interview and you talked about that. Are you interested in this? So now, like what you said about people calling up people
That's
and
really
asking
cool.
for their opinions, now that happens to me where reporters will call and say, hey, how do you feel about the new Supreme Court justice being, a Black woman, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why do you, I'm like, okay, you want my opinion, but it's now I have people asking me what my opinion on things are and different things. And it's just because I just do stuff.
I can't wait till people.
I think I'm still buying my way into heaven.
Yeah,
I've got one for you. How do you feel about the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson possibly having sex with other men? I feel good about it.
Like, how often is your name in that statement? Or how, like, whatever you're doing, whatever you're doing to get yourself there, you're doing something wrong. Or yeah. Right.
He's been too angry at the gays for too long to not have something going on in the background.
Oh, what a miserable person.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I can't describe the joy I felt at reading that headline this morning. I'm like, oh, it's Christmas.
It's like you just know that they're going to have that secret in their closet.
Okay, so from like coming from your military background, I'm curious, like, if do you follow like a lot of our foreign policy news closely? And there's been so much that I would think, veterans probably have like very strong opinions about over the past couple of years, like our withdrawal from Afghanistan and, some of the things that are being pushed for, like in Ukraine and stuff like that. Like, is that stuff that's on your radar, or is it mostly just like cable news fodder, or how do you see it?
I mean, it definitely is. I did take a step back from the news because I had to. It was killing my mental health too. Like, it was just too much, but I do pay attention to things. And I mean, my mom personally is dealing with the withdrawal from Afghanistan due to her interpreter being stuck there, and he's been jailed multiple times. I believe his son was shot. And they're, they've taken all their possessions and stuff and different things. And she's trying to help him get out of the country. He's been beaten by the Taliban and different things. So, personally, I've seen how it affected people, because at the end of the day, you don't pull out the troops until you make sure everybody's out who wants to be out,
Right.
And with that, and then I mean, with things like the wars and the Ukraine, it's hard for me because on one side you do have like the veteran side of me, and then on the other side you have the activist side of me. And to me, spending billions of money giving it to Ukraine when like we don't have free lunch program, it doesn't make sense to me. It just, I understand, and I think you should help your brother and sister out whenever they need help and things like that. And if you're there and you're able to lend a hand, then do that. But we have so many things that we could focus on and use the money for here in our own country that we just don't.
That we can't afford.
That we can't afford. That we just don't spend it on.
But
and
they
we
spend
spend it on
billions.
Yeah, defense spending, and we, sending it off to Ukraine. And it's like we have, roads and infrastructure and different things to, do like that, build a high-speed rail or something, but spend money wherever you want, just not here, not in your own country.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough. I was watching a news report about it today, about the fact that like we have no tracking program for the weapons that we're selling to Ukraine, and there's like a black market weapons or like a weapons black market thing that's formed there because there's just no like by all means, if we need to help, give them weapons and stuff, then great. But like, we should at least
like, are you giving it
know
back
where the weapons are going?
Right? Yeah. No, I mean, it seems perfectly reasonable, but
I don't know. It's such a tough one to talk about because on the one hand, like all the respect in the world for like those people fighting for their country, but at the same time, it's like, are we helping them or are we writing checks to Lockheed Martin?
Yeah.
Is that how we're helping them? Is by like just funneling money to defense contractors and things like that? And is that being spent wisely and stuff? And you can't help but notice, like,
over there. I mean, if you're gonna ship guns over there, it's not like Russia's like they're not gonna just be surprised when Ukrainians show up with more weapons. They're gonna be like, yeah, we know that's there, and we're going to respond accordingly. And it's just, I'm not sure. I don't know what America's role in the fucking world is like. It's weird. Like we meddle in everything, and that's always a problem. And now we've had like a shift where people want that, but like it's hard to know in such a horrible, fucked up situation. It's hard to know what's helping and what's right. Like, there's a lot of people who think we should be trying to broker a peace deal, but
John Bolton literally giggled today during a cable news interview about how he planned coups, and it takes a lot of brain power.
Oh God.
If there's a hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So technical difficulties averted. But what I was saying is like, I would vote for John Bolton's mustache as long as it's not attached to John Bolton's body and head.
Okay. Just a floating. It kind of looks like one of the brooms from that Fantasia piece with Mickey the magician. Is that what's going on?
It looks like the stool on Beauty and the Beast.
What'd you do with it?
The stool.
There was like a stool that was a dog.
Little footstool, the little puppy thing. Spot? What was his name?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I would watch that movie.
Well, I'm gonna bring this. I'm changing directions on you, Casey. I know you were really excited to keep talking about mustaches because you're just so fucking mad that you can't.
Horny for them.
You can't grow one, and it makes you upset. And
you want what you always want what you can't have.
Exactly. Okay, so Amber, I know you've had like a lot of changes in the directions that you've gone over the past few years. What are you doing now? Like as far as are you mentioned being on a panel of some sort, but I don't know the specifics of that panel. So let's start there.
Right. It is a from the Congressman Matt Cartwright, and it is to pick nominees who are going to the different military academies. So this past year, it was my second year of being able to do that. So basically, you get a binder of the best and the brightest in our area who are trying to go to any one of these schools. And basically, I get to read over their files and then interview them. And then we kind of get together as a group and pick who's going where.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. So I'm super honored to be a part of it and stuff. And I was the only Black person on the panel when I got on there. So figured that's good.
Yeah. I don't know if you have the numbers on it, but if white kids are making it into these schools disproportionately.
Yeah. I don't know any exact numbers on it, but it's we, as far as especially as locally, like I would love to get more diverse candidates, so like more women and more minorities. I'm not sure how to go about that or like where to start with that. But I think that more kids would be involved maybe if they didn't knew about it more, because a lot of these kids are cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean? Like you have police officers' kids, or my uncle's a judge or whatever, like kids who are kind of in that same vein, I guess, if that kind of makes sense. But
lacrosse players,
right? Yes. So like, how do we reach other kids with that and everything? And so I'm trying to finish up my master's degree in social work. So I'm also trying to do that. I took a break right now for the summer because Jacqueline was out of school. I have a 5-year-old. So we've been home, and she's been going to camp a little here and there. So she likes art. So been doing that. I'm the commander of my American Legion. So I had to cut the grass today. So doing some fun commander on that one. But that's my heart and soul. And we've really been able to take it from almost closing when I took over to, becoming a thriving business.
So I don't know much about what the American Legion does at all. I feel like I've seen their halls rented out for events. Maybe
metal
that's
shows.
Yeah, that's right. We've definitely been to a few metal shows at American Legions. But I don't know what their purpose is, what the whole organization, how it functions, and what its deal is.
It's basically it's an old school veterans organization, and I think there's about 100,000 different American Legions across the country and different things like that. Basically, it's like minds to come together. So you're with other fellow veterans, and you have that camaraderie in that community. And it's a social. It can be a social member, so people can join socially, but it's mostly veterans there. So you have a lot of. Now you're kind of ending the World War II veterans. You have a lot of Vietnam, Korea veterans and stuff like that. We're having the American Legion and the VFW are also having a hard time, getting younger veterans from OEF and OIF, from Afghanistan, from Iraq and stuff like that. So trying to get younger, more diverse veterans to be able to come in and want to be a part of an organization.
The organization is that how you've gotten involved in some of your activism for veterans? Is being the commander of your American Legion kind of put you in a position to do that, or is that just
I was
your
already
awareness of the issues?
I was already involved in all of that before. I just took over in January. So
okay.
This is new for me. So I've actually been using my contacts and stuff from other organizations to kind of try to help bring our organization together and put together some things, and did like my first big Memorial Day parade. We had a beast feast, so we have a pig roast
sweet.
coming up. So
I've always wanted to go to one of those.
So
where you get like
fun.
A bunch of different meats. Sorry to our vegan listeners or whatever.
Yes, a whole bunch of different meats. One of my members, I was telling them about. I'm from the country, y'all. Okay, so. But was telling them that my mom is fighting with a groundhog in her yard, and I want to shoot it. And they're like, "Oh, well, be careful when you shoot it, because groundhogs are good eating." And I was like, I just knew that somehow this conversation was going to like eat a groundhog. And so they're like, "Oh yeah, no, it's real good." Like they're like, groundhogs are vegan, so like they just munch around and eat all that good stuff. And he was like, when you get it, you got to make sure you don't rupture the sacks, And I'm just envisioning this, and it's so gross. I don't know, like, and I mean, and there's like 5 people now involved in the conversation. Like, there's like old vets
Everyone
from everywhere
just keeps popping in.
For real.
Oh, did you mention? Did I just hear something about eating?
And
groundhog?
then somebody mentions like a beaver, and they're like, "Oh man, yeah." Beaver's good, like beaver tail soup, and how you eat a beaver and how you got to get. And I'm just sitting there like, and then somebody comes in and he's like, "Oh yeah,
I would not be able to sit there through that conversation with a straight face."
We had beaver at the Beast Feast, and I was like, "I remember when we had beaver at the Beast. Do I remember?"
Beaver was big back in like the frontier days, because the like trappers and stuff, apparently like they had such a low fat diet. Like if you're eating rabbits and stuff, there's not a lot of fat content there, and like you need that or you're gonna waste away. And beaver tails are all fat, so apparently they would like roast beaver tails over the fire, and it was kind of like a delicacy. I think it's one of those things where like if you're deficient in something, you sort of crave it, so people loved them.
Is that what Is that what Trump was trying to get back to when he said "Make America Great Again"?
Yeah, beaver tail roast.
Beavers.
Sweet.
We used to have like wild game suppers at my church in Georgia when I was a little kid.
Oh
And I remember it was just like 50 crock pots full of weird simmering white goop.
Oh,
dude,
at least with ours, a lot of it is like oven or roasted or like grilled and stuff. So it's more like, I mean, I'm not really eating most of it. But.
I've had so little outside of like chicken, beef, and pork. I've barely had anything. So I feel like I always want to go to one of those, like, especially because there's some around here that'll do them, and usually it's at like gun clubs, which I don't really fit in with gun clubs. It's a weird place for me.
If I can fit into my legion, I mean, it's literally like, imagine your most like redneck Trump supporter looking guy, veteran, you know, and then me, you know, black, big glasses, always overdressed for no reason, you know, like nose ring, tattoos all over, you know, rolling in, going, you know, yelling at people and stuff. So it's really funny.
The woodchuck.
Because I really don't look like I'd fit in at all there.
I think that's what's super cool about it. It is getting a diverse group of people, having that bond and having that bring people together. But it probably, like, we've kind of we've made it like a badge of honor to like cut people out of your life who don't agree with you or think like you. And I don't know, we've done each other. I think we've just done a big disservice and deepened the divide by being unable to have productive conversations. And I'm not entirely guilty of not guilty of that. Like, sometimes conversations are difficult, but just to have spaces like that. I think that was what was always kind of cool about music. The music scene too was just like,
yeah,
you'd meet people who were different. Like you had that, and you all looked like doofuses with hair swoops and shit. But like outside of that, like it would vary, and I feel like we lose that the older we get. So to kind of stay active in a group where it's not just so homogenous. That's why church has gone so fucking sour.
Yeah, you got to try to really get out of your bubble and try to be around diverse people and different ways of thinking. And sometimes it's hard. And I mean, I think there's things that you can disagree on, and there's things that you can't disagree on, you know, but I still have best friends who voted for Trump and who are Republicans and conservatives. And, you know, and I have best friends who are super liberal, you know. My best friend since I was 4 years old is still evangelical Christian, you know, not a crazy person, but like, you know, she still actively goes to church and is involved in things like that. And like, we talk about everything, you know, from the Kardashians to abortion. And if we can, you know, find common ground, and I think the biggest thing is just having empathy for other people and putting yourself in other people's positions and realizing like you can't expect yourself from other people. So you can't expect other people to react how you would react, and you can't force them to react how you would react. So in that, if you take yourself kind of out of the equation and you give people room to have a different opinion and room to have empathy for them and kind of see it from their different eyes. Like, you may not agree and I may not have made that decision, but I can see why somebody else would in that situation. And I think that really can help, you know, because you have to care about people in some sense to kind of understand where they're coming from.
And you have to care about people who don't believe like you. Like,
right.
There are people hurting in this world that don't believe like you. And you can say that people in the Rust Belt are voting against their best interests because they voted for Trump. That doesn't mean they deserve any shit they get from that. Like, you can, and I think even you talking about your friend and having those differences of opinion is like kind of calling back to my little rant earlier on, where it's like, there's a lot of people, it's like, it kind of has to do with your own mindset. Like, are you out there because you want to change somebody's mind, or are you just building relationships with people? Because if you're just trying to change someone's mind, those people, no one's ever going to trust you because you're disingenuous and you're not really caring about someone's life or investing into their life based on their humanity and who they are and what you think they deserve just for existing in this world. And I that's what I think is so frustrating, is like, I think it's reasonable to not have certain conversations with certain people. I think I think that's the right thing to do in a lot of situations. So I'm not trying to like prescribe anything carte blanche, but it's like the goal. I don't believe at this point in my life that the goal of your relationships with anybody should be so you can change their mind, because that's not a real relationship.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult.
That is like getting witnessed to by a stranger.
Exactly.
It's
You're like, get out of here, man.
And it doesn't mean it's not hard to be in relationship with people who don't think the same. Like that can be challenging. And if you have enough history and understanding and trust and safety, like you can have those conversations and you can really get in the weeds in it, and you're never going to like be bothered by it. And you can't do that with maybe some rando at the American Legion, but there's different levels, I guess, of relationship with different people. And it's just not like, okay, it's not like I'm not going to talk about this anymore.
You should have to, like, I really do think that sometimes if you already know somebody's opinion on something, why am I going to try to argue? Let them think whatever they want. Like, it's just not worth it. Sometimes it's not right. It's not, if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer. But if not, it's kind of like, okay, so what? Right. I know I already know how they think and feel. Like, I'm not going to let it change my life or bother me.
Yeah. Like I had I might have even mentioned this. It was a little while ago now, but my dad and I don't see eye to eye on much. And we've had some good conversations and we've had some really bad conversations about it where it just got hostile, and it's whatever. And then it smooths over, and that's life and that's family. But I was like, something came up about schools, like school systems, how the way schools work. And he had an idea about like what he thought the problem was with schools. And I was like, well, I think it's a little different than that because of how this, school hierarchy, school boards, taxes. There's so much going into how a school functions that it's hard to blame one thing. And if I just was like, decided one day that I wanted to have a conversation about why I think he's wrong about schools, like that would have been such a waste of time. But like he brought it up, he was curious. We were both in like the right headspace for it. So it was like a good, productive conversation. And, there were some things that we saw eye to eye on and other things we didn't. But
you have to be able to challenge. You have to be able to challenge what you believe and be able to defend it. And I think sometimes in talking to people who don't believe what you believe, you really sometimes stand there and go, do I really believe this? Or is this how I really want to, like, is this how I want to phrase it? Or is this the way I really think? And it kind of can enlighten you a little bit. So I definitely think it's important to talk to people and engage for different things, because it can change your mind. You can learn something about yourself that you didn't even know.
Definitely.
It's like, it's rapport,
Yeah.
Like in sales, you might get somebody to buy something, but like to change the way they do business, in a way that benefits the both of you. Like you've got to have rapport with that. People don't trust those decisions to people that they don't know or they don't understand, like they need a sense of your values and they need a sense of like your thought process and stuff before they're willing to even entertain the ideas that you're proposing. And there's no shortcut for that. Like that is all built on like time spent with people. And so like, I think that is kind of core to all that is if you haven't spent the time with somebody and you're not going to spend the time with somebody, like you don't have the rapport, it's not worth it to have that conversation with them. Like you haven't invested in that person, so you shouldn't try to jump to that.
Why get yourself all frustrated?
Right. Yeah. It's not good for either
that's one. That's about those things are about the people who are saying the things. It's like they get to, go to Twitter or Facebook later and be like, oh, I just totally gave this person the business.
God.
It's like, that's all it is. It's just like public masturbation. It's like, God, that should be a crime.
Speaking of which, okay.
Speaking of public masturbation, I don't.
Yes, in a
confession
way.
Time with Casey. Okay.
So there's. I feel like conservatives especially make a big spectacle of their love and respect and support of veterans. And usually that comes in the form of like a handshake and a thank you for your service and sort of thing like that. And, that makes them feel good. Maybe in some cases it makes the person receiving it feel good. What does the veteran community need from everybody else? What is meaningful that people can actually do for the veteran community? That's not just about making me feel good about things, but what can we do that's helpful for veterans?
Stop making veterans would be helpful. And I don't think they should have, after you serve your country, things should just be easier and more accessible to people, and simpler, and maybe not as complicated. And I think that, like we were talking about, people just being in different situations and stuff, there's veterans in all different situations who maybe don't have access to doing different things, and doing appointments over the phone, or doing appointments online, or scheduling and different things or whatnot. And how do we make things accessible for them and reasonable for them to be able to use it, and change the stigma of mental health with it. There was a lot of suicides this past year, and there were some major events on an aircraft carrier and different things. And it's we're obviously not supporting people the way they needed to be supported, and taking care of people after they're finished. And it's hard, and I don't know all the right answers as far as the big picture overall, but in your community, just get involved with the American Legion and the VFW, any local veterans organizations where you can donate clothes and hygiene products and different things like that. And go there and get to know vets and talk to them and become their friends and hang out with them and learn your history and learn things that are soon going to be forgotten. But I think that there's a lot that we can do just on a personal level just to help people. There's a lot of older vets that live in veterans hospitals and different things that don't have any family and people coming to visit them and doing different things. So whether it's, knitting blankets or taking food or different things. I know that I talked to a woman that worked in Congressman Matt Cartwright's office about getting minority and ethnic hair products for veterans who are staying in the hospital, because they don't have that. They don't have oil for your hair, a scarf, or lotion that actually works and doesn't, make you more ashy, shampoo and different things and things for, female veterans that are there, different hair products and different things like that. But those things are important. And then on the bigger scale of it, there's so many veterans out there who just don't have access to care due to where they live. And maybe they live in the middle of nowhere, or they live in a medical desert where there's just not any hospitals or different things around. So the closing of clinics and hospitals, that affects veterans as well. Maternal health care, that affects veterans as well. A lot of female veterans are single parents, so accessible childcare and affordable childcare. When I got out of the military, I had my daughter. I was trying to go to school, and I was paying $650 a month for her to go to preschool and stuff so I could go to school. And I remember trying to add it up one day to if I got a job on the weekends and got her a sitter or something, and I think I would be negative $12 a month, to afford the childcare, to try to work or whatever. But my school had a daycare on campus, so it was accessible for me to be able to nurse and run the class and do all those kind of things. But every campus doesn't have that, and a lot of one of the barriers to female veterans going to college and getting their degree after returning from the military is due to being a single parent and having their child and things like that, and not having affordable childcare and different things. So many things that are just American issues too get kind of amplified on the veteran level, because we're not a huge part of the population and things. But there's definitely a lot of things that you can do, and veterans can always use a raise. So if you ever want to write your congressman or senator, and talk about that, and advocate for better healthcare and mental health care for veterans when they get out. So that they have that and are able to kind of access it. We, especially during COVID, like for me personally, my vet stopped allowing having kids there. So now I wasn't able to take my daughter with me if I needed to go to appointments and things like that. And that really put a bummer in me because I needed to, I had stuff I needed to do. I needed to go to the doctor and different things. And I can't go now because I have a 5-year-old. So, there's still issues that are going on that veterans are facing every day that, people could help with.
That's so much. I think it's just worth noting. I know there's people all over the map on their beliefs and ideology about, America's involvement in all sorts of things across the world. There's conscientious objectors, there's pacifists, there's people who have plenty of thoughts about it. But I think most people, it's like, if you do that, if you serve the country, if you sign up for any branch of the military and they just fuck you over afterwards, the richest country in the world, one with so many resources, it's like, it's a fucking tragedy. It seems so sad and unfair, and it's especially with what happened. Like, I mean, if you see
so contrary to the rhetoric
and you see combat, like that changes you. That changes your brain forever. And like, it should be simpler. Sorry, if you've watched if you've seen some of the things that some people have seen, like keeping a schedule might just be something that's a little complicated when you get out. And it's like, God, the fact that they don't make it simpler it really is a tragedy.
Yeah. Because like it's easier now to do. Like I've done my benefits online and added to them and had to get medical records and different things. But I had a vet daughter call me asking for help because she got a letter in the mail. But when I explained to her how to do it on the computer, she was like, oh, I think I could probably do that, figure it out, But from what she read to me in the mail, it was so much more complicated. And like, and I had done it twice. And I was like, I never had to do any of that. So I don't know where you're getting that. And she's like, no, this is what it says. I'm reading it. But just the fact of that was so much more complicated. And I know that they made it easier and accessible for people like me and people like her who can just go on our phone and be able to do it. But for him, like he if she wasn't there, he wouldn't have been able to do it. So what about those people? What do those people do?
It's wild how many issues there are. I feel like on every topic, every subject, there's so many problems. Well, you can talk about healthcare, you can talk about childcare, you can talk about public education. You could there isn't one thing that you could talk about that isn't like just filled with problems, and that some people are passionate about more than others. But it's like it's exhausting. It's just it's so exhausting. You're like, how do you get through this? How do you fix any of this? And now we just it feels more and more like we have a government that doesn't value the will of their constituents, that doesn't even really function as a democracy in the way that money buys things. And you're like, so I don't know. It's frustrating. By the time this comes out, it'll be a few weeks back, I guess. But I feel like I'm going on more hopeless rants lately about where things are at. So politically speaking, before we get out of here, I know we've been going for a little while. Like, it's like, I don't think it's a lost cause yet, to try to get involved in things politically. And I hearing from you on, some of the grassroots things, like in the way that you've, even outside of politics, just like, I see a need here, I'm going to fucking do something about it because I believe this is the right thing to do. I feel like that's the kind of stuff that we need, but those are the kind of people that we need. And so that's been really cool to hear those stories from you. Getting involved in politics on a local level, at a grassroots level, like there's stuff people can do everywhere. And I don't know if you have just a small bit of advice for how people can actually make their voice heard and their money count, or it's hard to feel like a vote counts all the time, but I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I definitely would say getting people registered for vote. So you can go to like anything for voter registration online. And I mean, I have people who have ordered voter registration applications or just received them and were able to go and give them out to people. You'd be surprised the amount of people who actually still aren't registered to vote. And there's always people who are turning 18 years old. So you can always, work with that. So right now we have.
And tell them you'll buy them weed if they vote for whoever you want them to vote for.
Like you have Get Out the Vote. What is it? GetOutTheVote.org, where it helps, and you can search your local area and things like that. You can also help people get to ride to the polls. You can also volunteer at your polls to help. You can pass out water. You can do different things like that. You can, whatever way you swing, you can get involved with your local politicians and organizations. Check on Facebook is honestly the best place, and see what different groups and stuff are actually in your area, in your neighborhood. Like, what are the local organizations and groups doing? Where I live in Scranton, there's different neighborhood associations. So getting involved with, your neighborhood association. What are the people who are your neighbors and things in community doing? Go to your city council meetings, talk to them, ask them questions, be annoying fly on the wall in there where you're there asking what's going on and what's happening with this. Go to your school board meetings, find out what's going on in your local schools and things like that. Those are things that you can just kind of just do on your own, just to get involved. And again, you'll be surprised how many times they're going to say, hey, we need parents to be on the PTA. We need people to be on the school board. We need people who want to, hold these little local offices in their communities, and there's vacancies and there's openings for things that are going on. And you can just kind of find your way into those situations and work with that. If you're a student and you're in college, obviously on college campuses, there's a lot of Get Out the Vote going on and different drives. So on the local level, why it's important, like we have different petitions going around right now. Those are normally like the question that's on your ballot. So it would have some weird question that would say, and 38B or whatever, do you approve of this happening or that happening? And a lot of people don't know what those different things are, but it could be like ours is people are getting signatures so that we can get rid of solitary confinement in Lackawanna County. So that's something that you could petition for in your area. Like people here petitioned to one of our city councilwomen. She was able to make it illegal for conversion therapy in Lackawanna. Doesn't seem like a huge deal, because it's a small area, but it's a big win, because you never know what's happening. And all that took was, one person to come and say, hey, I'm going to, write legislation that's going to support this in my local area. And those things really do count, and they do matter.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's like, obviously there's stuff people can do. I feel like it feels so like, it just feels like so out of reach. Our political system feels like something it's just totally different from actual real life. And it doesn't have to be. And I think even you talking about regular people being able to write legislation, and I mean, just finding ways. There's so many ways to get involved. A lot of people don't want to add anything else to their schedule. And even though they're like, oh, I don't know if voting really helps. It might not always, but if you're going to do nothing, that's literally the only fucking thing you can do. Yeah. So just fucking do it.
But it helps on a local level, especially when, I mean, you have people who are winning by like 10 votes, local. Yeah. So those things matter. Like who your sheriff is matters. Who's your coroner? Those things matter. Who's your mayor matters in your area. So who are your judges? Like who are the local judges in your area?
Yeah,
if your area has a lot of issues with, say, police brutality and, racial shootings and hate crimes and stuff like that, look at who the judges are in your area. Look at people who are running the police force and people who works in your coroner's office. Like, who are all of these people that all have a say locally in what's going on? And, you know, who's your DA? Who's your ADA? A lot of times those seats get ran unopposed just for years. And until something happens, you know, a person just going to keep winning because nobody ever says anything if everything is kind of just, you know, teetering along. But all of those things are open and up for election, and a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to be qualified for it, but if Donald Trump showed us anything, you do not have to be qualified for it. So, like, there's coroners who are not, there's coroners who are not doctors. So, well, you know, Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house. So, you know, do whatever you have to do, but don't feel like you have to reach a certain level to try to get somewhere to be able to do something. And that's something that I battle with, you know, all the time, the imposter syndrome of, but, you know, you're going to be the youngest person in the room sometimes. You're going to be the only girl in a room. You're going to be the only Black person in the room. You're going to be the only gay in a room, you know, and you just have to kind of be willing to step out and take that chance. And once you do that and other people see it, and then they start, you know, recognizing that, and then they start asking you your opinion on things, and where can they donate money? Where can they help? When people start seeing action that you're taking locally in your area, whatever that is, people who do have money and have time will want to reach out to you and offer the things that they can. You know, like I said, when I was driving people to the polls, there are people who couldn't help me physically, but donated money in a vehicle and wet wipes and hand sanitizer and all that stuff so that you were able to kind of reach the goal that you were trying to do. And it can be, you know, I'm out here doing it and I'm, you know, I'm just a girl from Scranton, you know, I watch Family Guy like every day. So I'm not anything kind of special, but it's just, you know, I like social media, and I found a way to be able to use my influence on there to garner attention for things for what I want and be vocal about things. And so, yeah, hit me up on Instagram, Amber_Viola.
You're a fun follow on Instagram too. You're always doing shit. I love it.
Website is amberviola.com and Facebook is Amber Viola.
So the next time you meet with a senator, I'm just curious, can you ask them where they keep the children in between rituals?
The next time, it could be Oz. That'll be the next.
When I was looking around the governor's mansion, I was seeing if there's any, like, you know, basements.
Good shit to steal. No. Ooh, I like that painting. I'll take that.
He had great artwork in there, though, honestly. And the food was really good. Sure.
Yeah. Best money can buy.
Right.
Best other people's money can buy.
The silverware was like engraved with every. So I guess for those of you listening, I was able to go to the governor's residence in Harrisburg for a luncheon on his Juneteenth luncheon. So he invited Black activists from Pennsylvania to come and to have lunch with him at his house. So it was super hoity-toity and fancy, and I ate everything I could.
That's awesome.
Well, Amber, it's been great talking to you again. Thank you for coming back on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. It won't be the last, and hopefully next time it'll be because you are promoting a campaign. This would be a good
place to announce your presidential run. You know?
Oh my! Yes, on Growing Up Christian.
Yeah. Buy Dogecoin and vote for Amber Viola. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.